everyone, and welcome back to another video. I've been sitting here just listening to this absolutely beautiful music. I can't tell you how much I just enjoy this soundtrack for Pacifier. It's definitely one of those chill soundtracks where you can just put it on in the background, but when you're just doing stuff, and it helps you get through things. But today, I'm going to be talking about how I am playing my Spellbreaker and some of my thoughts on it, and if I liked it, if I didn't like it. And just to preface, I've never been a huge fan of warrior type characters and classes in video games. I definitely appreciate them, but they're not my most favorite because I tend to like more magical, mystical classes like elementalists and or guardians. And I guess a guardian is a nice middle ground for more heavy metal stuff and mystical magic. So with that being said, let's just go over the certain skills that I have been using and my traits, and do a little combat, maybe a little build crafting, and just, exploring the Spellbreaker. So if we open our hero panel, we will go to our build tab. And right off the bat, the three specializations that I am taking are Strength, Discipline, and Spellbreaker. For this build, I've been going more towards heavy damage with a little bit of defense thanks to my gear. Actually, before we move on to the build, let me briefly go over my gear. It's typically Berserkers, but it does have some toughness and concentration. And these are just like the base daggers that you get from equipping the Spellbreaker. And I believe one of these was just lying around in my bank, and it had extra toughness on it. I'm like, you know what, I'm not too skilled with warrior, so just in case, if I have trouble in the desert, I have a little bit of a helping hand with toughness and vitality. Offhand, I'm taking double axes, and then I have, oh, this is my wardrobe setting, and then I have the Berserker stats for my amulets, my rings, and not necessarily Berserker, but definitely still power-based with some defensive capabilities for my accessories, and I have yet to acquire a decent back item. I'm still trying to get this one. I don't necessarily play this character too often, so still working out the kinks in the gear, but one day. I feel like I'm always trying to work out kinks in my character's gear. Then again, I do have 22 characters, so put a little bit of a burden on myself. Moving on to the build, I am taking Strength, Discipline, and Spellbreaker. In the Strength line, I'm taking Peak Performance, which was recently changed in the last balance patch. I was originally taking Restorative Strength for the Might, but I've thought and noticed that Peak Performance might be a little bit better in the outgoing damage department when you have physical skills equipped on your utility, which I do. I have two. Next, I'm taking Great Fortitude, gain vitality based on a percentage of your power. This is also for some extra defense. Forceful Greatsword, if you do equip a Greatsword, and I do have a Greatsword in my inventory, but I'm not using it with this layout, so I'm switching to Great Fortitude. And finally, Berserker's Power for that extra damage when you use a burst skill. And with Spellbreaker, you get 2 burst skills, and one only, if you activate one, it only consumes 1 bar. So you technically have 2 within a very short period of time. Moving on to Discipline, I'm taking Warrior's Sprint for some extra mobility. The other options, Vengeful Return is a really great option if you are going down a lot, but I've noticed that I'm not necessarily going down every second, so I'd rather run faster. And Break Immobilize, because there is some enemies that will apply Immobilize to the player character. Next, I'm taking Destruction of the Empowered. This kind of goes in line with the Spellbreaker, where you deal increased damage to foes that have boons on them. It's a bit off the brand of Spellbreaker, because with Spellbreaker you're trying to rip them, but for this trait you're supposed to leave the boons on for as long as possible, which is a bit difficult and challenging to play around, but I'd rather take this because the other 2 traits are kind of meh, and I'd rather have that extra damage instead of just removing a condition or having banners apply regeneration. And I don't have any banners, so there's no point in inspiring Battle Standard. And finally, I have Burst Mastery. Burst skills do more damage and restore 33% of your adrenaline. I've also been using Axe Mastery thanks to the buffs that Axe got in the last patch. Definitely powerful, more powerful than it was. And it feels like I kill things much quicker when I'm using Axe skills. So Burst Mastery and Axe Mastery have both been really fun to play. Moving on to the Piece of Resistance, the Spellbreaker. I'm taking Pure Strike for some extra crit damage. Next, I'm taking Sun and Moon for some quickness if I interrupt a foe, and some minor healing based on a percentage of my crit damage. And finally, I'm taking Revenge Counter for some extra damage on your full counter, and also to copy some conditions. Enchantment Collapse, I don't have too much use in PvE. In PvP, this would be very, very useful. And Mage Bane Tether, it might possibly be okay. I have not played around with this too much. It does provide the warrior with might, but I just haven't tried it. I probably should try it, and I might try it with this video. So now that I've gone over my specializations and my traits that I've taken, let's move on to the weapons and utilities. I am taking the Dagger combo. Pretty straightforward. Your auto attack, your final strike will scale based on if it is a critical hit or not. A slow, a daze that does extra damage if you daze, and another skill that is just a very simple skill. It does more damage if the enemy is not using a skill. And a final skill, your 5th skill, Bladestorm, which applies vulnerability and reflects projectiles. All of these, of course, do damage. Moving on to the utilities, I'm taking Natural Healing for a very large heal on a very modest cooldown, only 25 seconds. I kind of was expecting them to increase the cooldown for Natural Healing to like 30 seconds, but I've noticed that they haven't been changing healing skills in balance patches for a while now, which could be a good thing, and it could also not be a good thing. Next, I'm taking Break Enchantments. I've been questioning Break Enchantments because I feel that Break Enchantments is very useful in PvP, but I don't know how useful it is in a PvE scenario. It does a bit of damage, and it's more AoE damage, but I've also been considering taking Imminent Threat, which applies Taunt and grants the user retaliation. Mostly for the retaliation, as if they are continuing to attack you, you do a little bit more damage. So I've been thinking of that. Plus the extra adrenaline is always nice. Next, I have 2 physical skills, which synergize with the peak performance trait. I'm taking Kick and Throw Bolus. Throw Bolus for a little bit of range to start up the fight. And Kick if I need an extra stun or CC in a fight, if there's a break bar. You never know. And finally, I'm taking Winds of Disenchantment. I'm taking it for the lightning field, and also for the fact that in the desert there are a fairly moderate amount of enemies that use projectiles, and I'd rather not get hit with projectiles, especially the forged sharpshooters, and they make your day really, really bad. They're not fun. So I thought I'd counter this with a projectile hate skill. And also, removing boons is always nice if you are with a forged who applies boons to allies, and it's a very, very large area, 360 radius, so nothing to scoff at. This is my character. She's orange. She has the lunatic attire, and I really like her. So let's move into the forged camp and take down some forged, while I talk a little bit more about my thoughts on the Spellbreaker. Right off the bat, most people will say that Spellbreaker is an amazing PvP spec, and I completely agree. I think it really does shine in PvP, but I don't think it's completely useless in a PvE scenario. We're gonna kill the sharpshooter here. We're gonna interrupt him, so it does a little bit more damage, and then immediately follow up with the fourth dagger skill to do even more damage. But I completely agree that it is a PvP spec. But it does have its places in PvE, and I'm very excited to see how the Spellbreaker slots into the next raid. It can either be moderately useful, very useful, or just have no place at all. And part of me is kind of leaning towards it might not have a place at all, but ArenaNet could surprise me, and the raid team could definitely surprise me and make the bosses apply just a multitude of boons that require players to strip the boons and or transform the boons into conditions, which would be really, really fun. Oh, it looks like we aggroed a lot of people. So let's try to rectify this situation. Gonna use a full burst. I'm moving into Axe because Axe is really hard hitting. Oh gosh. Also, I kind of wish the 7th skill, the taunt and the retaliation was a stun break. I'm gonna use Winds of Disenchantment to help with the projectiles. Ooh, gotta run. Gotta run. No. Also the Dazing Strike. See, I've never been super good with Warrior, so still trying to practice. Natural Healing. To get the Weaponeer. But there was very potent buffs to Axe, which makes it a very useful flat damage weapon. I remember before they patched it, I was always kind of let down with the amount of damage that the other skills would do. And I would just really use the auto attack because it felt the most satisfying. But with the changes, it does feel a lot better. Ugh, damn scavengers. So you can see here, I can stack my peak performance buff and then do extra damage. And then spin to win. And fly away. I'm gonna move back into Dagger. So I'm using Imminent Threat. Actually, does Spellbreaker have? Oh, it does. Featherfoot Grace is the stun break. Imminent Threat. I'm sorry, I almost said Immense Threat. Imminent Threat kind of feels like it should be stun break as well, but I don't expect them to put 2 stun breaks on a Elite Specialization utility selection. Just gonna kill a Warthog because, you know, just for fun. My trait that I'm taking right now is Axe Mastery. So let's go off of Axe Mastery after we kill these sharpshooters. And then we shall see. I might change it up a little bit and go with the greatsword instead of an axe. Boom. Get that retaliation. Extra damage, just to make sure that if you're attacking me, you're also having negative effects. Okay, let's change it up a little bit. Let me just salvage some things, clean up my inventory, because I am a very OCD person when it comes to inventory management. I used to not be, and I'm kind of glad that I've changed. Let me use my great sword, and let me change up my traits really quickly. Let me use Forceful Greatsword. Gain might and a critical hit with a greatsword or spear. Greatsword and spear skills do more damage and recharge faster. So that's going to be very, very useful. No longer need to take Axe Mastery. Heightened Focus. What is this? Gain quickness when you strike a foe that is below the health threshold. This is on a 15-second cooldown. That might actually be very useful for sword. But burst skills doing more damage. I'm going to try Heightened Focus for a little bit. Let me just see how it works out. Any more forged around this area? I think they have respawned. Here they are. Forged soldiers. There we go. Gonna then use my physical skills to get some extra damage. Oh, it does actually. The greatsword seems very, very strong in conjunction with the peak performance trait. I was out of range. I was about to use my frenzy skill, but then I was like, nope. I was out of range. I probably shouldn't. Throw bolas. Boom. And then spam. That feels very, very strong. Okay, let's kill this veteran. Veterans are always a lot of fun to fight against, especially in videos like this, where you need to test out certain skills and damage.
This rose has thorns. Here they are.
I'm gonna switch into my dagger set. Managed to daze the officer, because that skill is very annoying when they call down the columns of fire. Gonna knock him. Boom. Slow him down a little bit, dazed him, and then finish him off. Oh gosh, no. I'm gonna switch back into my greatsword and try to manage these sharpshooters. I need to wait for my healing skill to come back. I'm so glad I put down that Winds of Disenchantment to help with the projectiles. I knew I'd go down here. Don't worry, I can manage to kill the forged officers and prowlers. Go, 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 go. There we go. Rallied. And spin to win. Throw the sword. And there we go. I'm gonna get this weaponeer because these weaponeers are very annoying. Pop. I'm gonna use my... Oh, no, the burning got to me. Conditions. You tend to forget about them until it's too late. I'm done. I believe there's a sharpshooter attacking me. You better not, boy. My character is on a tilt. So that was a lot of fun. Is there a scavenging party? 'Cause I'll go kill a scavenger party. Forge remaining. Oh, it's the Amnoon defense. Gonna kill this war mage. So the war mages do apply a lot of boons right here, as you can see. Just gonna rip some of the boons off, deal a little bit more damage. And overall, I really like the dagger playstyle. I don't think it's slow at all. I think it's a very, very... I keep saying very, very... I have a habit of doubling up on my words. And you guys have probably noticed that. But I'm very pleased with the amount of damage that the dagger does. It seems distinguished from the thief dagger, where it's not lightning fast. And it's a bit slower, but not super slow. And it does a adequate amount of damage to what you would expect from a warrior wielding a dagger. And I think the added slow is really, really beneficial because you can slow the enemy and then visually see the telegraph for a skill and then use Disrupting Stab, daze them, and then follow up with Wastrel's Ruin. And overall, final thoughts on the Spellbreaker is that I've really, really enjoyed playing the Spellbreaker. I'm excited to see how it fares in upcoming raids. I'm not sure if it really has a place in the existing raid groups, but you never know. Something might happen where it's like, someone might find that one skill combination and just blow everything out of the water, but I think by now people would have found it. So here's hoping that the next raid wings will accommodate for more boon play and condition play, not just flat power. And I hope that like the raid bosses will sometimes make conditions ineffective, because condition damage in raids is really, really strong. That was just I could make a whole other video on raids. But I hope you all enjoyed. Sorry, just like my brain sped up by 1,000. My tongue was behind. I hope you all enjoyed. I really, really like the Spellbreaker, and I'm very hopeful and excited to be playing more of Warrior and exploring the different facets of Warrior. Next, I have to get into Engineer, but that might take a while. But subscribe for more content on Guild Wars 2, Overwatch, and World of Warcraft if you guys would like. Like the video if you liked it. If you didn't, no worries. I do apologize if it was not satisfactory. And leave a comment on your thoughts and possible build combinations for the Spellbreaker. I would love to see them and love to test them out, because Warrior is a completely foreign land that I have yet to discover. And I hope you all, once again, enjoyed. And I'll see you all in the next video. Bye, everyone. Mwah.